It'll say. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next session in the series of Iowa Prison Perspectives. My name is Sue Hutchins, and if this is your first time joining, welcome. If you've been here before, I'm going to go through a little bit of an introduction like I always do for the new people. If you want to reach me about these interviews in this series, I can be reached at iowaprisonperspectives@gmail.com, and that's iaprisonperspectives.com. The purpose of this series is to trigger some and stir up some conversations and some discussions about the Iowa prison system. We really started this because we want there to be discussion. We want the public to be aware, and we want people to be talking about what goes on in Iowa prisons. As you know, there are a lot of rumors and a lot of misconceptions about what happens in prison, and we are here to try to straighten some of that out by doing interviews with people who have been incarcerated, people who have worked in the Iowa Department of Corrections system, loved ones, people who have someone who is incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, and advocates such as myself. I personally don't have anybody who's incarcerated, a loved one who's incarcerated, but I do have what I consider to be a lot of people that are close associates of mine, both who work with people who are incarcerated and also with family members and with people who are incarcerated. This is a collaboration between the Iowa Justice Action Network, Living Beyond the Bars of Iowa, and Iowa Cure. All three of those organizations have a website, and you can find more information about this and many other issues that affect people in the Iowa prisons. So welcome today, and I am going to introduce to you and let you meet a wonderful woman who has done a lot for people who are returning from prison here in Iowa, or some people who are returning to Iowa who have been in the federal prison system. Her name is Michelle, and she is the director of an organization in Iowa City, Iowa, that is called Inside Out. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her tell you all about her organization and her thoughts and feelings about prison. So Michelle, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sue. Happy to be here. So my name is Michelle Heinz, and I'm the director of Inside Out Reentry Community. We support individuals returning to the community in Johnson County, Iowa. Our office is based in Iowa City. Quick kind of overview of what we do is, ideally, we love to connect with people before they're released. We have a firm belief that reentry actually starts at day one. Most individuals that go to prison come back out to the community. And so that means they're coming back. Let's try to provide them some supports on what coming back will look like. So while someone's incarcerated, we're going to send them letters. We're going to reach out to them on the email system. We are going to send resources, help with reentry planning, and also just be supportive, encouragement, send them information. We do things like every Father's Day, we mail in Father's Day cards, Christmas cards. We want folks to feel connected to the outside, especially because these are our neighbors, loved ones, and people they're going to be right here in the community when they come back. So why not try to keep them as included as possible? When folks return back to the community, that's where I think kind of the heart of what we do is. We have a resource center that individuals can stop into whenever needed to get support. We help with finding housing, help with finding employment, getting connected with community resources such as mental health, substance use treatment. Maybe it's finding out where the food pantries are, helping someone sign up for an ID, Medicaid, finding a church. We also have clothing. Folks can come in and get free clothing, backpacks with hygiene products, bus passes. Basically, whatever someone may need when they're getting out and starting over, we want to try to be there and support them. Some of the ways in which we do that, in addition to those resources that I discussed, is that we utilize a lot of groups. So we have a number of peer support groups where folks can come get that positive support. We work on topics, personal growth, change, healing, that sort of thing. We have a group for folks in all stages of substance use recovery. We have our largest group, our community meeting, which is a really powerful group because folks come. We've had it the same time every week for many, many years now. And so folks know they, maybe out in the community for years, they want to hit a meeting, they can come back. We've never changed the time. It is where it is. And folks can come back and join us for that. And sometimes we do fun things. Like last night, we had a grill out and a bags tournament, which got very competitive. But, oftentimes during that group too, we're bringing in community resources that people can learn from. We've brought in like a community crisis center, which is a food pantry and has mobile crisis support, so folks can learn about accessing things right here in their community. uh, these groups are important to us. We also have the opportunity every week to go out to our local work release center, which is run by the 6th Judicial District, the Hope House, and we do a group out there so we can connect with guys as they're first getting out and getting to the center and get them connected to some valuable resources and see if they want to get involved with us at Inside Out. We have a mentoring program, which I love the mentoring program because we take a volunteer in the community and we pair them one-on-one with someone. And it's basically just a supportive friendship. At Inside Out, our staff we're doing so much of that logistic stuff of, okay, here's a job resource, here's this, here's that, where the mentor is like, hey, let's go to McDonald's and get a cup of coffee and you can complain to me about your boss, or, what that kind of informal network of support, which is so important because when folks are getting out,
Yes.
and many times they're starting over. They're having to limit so much of their previous social network because it maybe wasn't healthy for them. So they need that positive support. Somebody new that, but can also listen and provide encouragement and feedback and goal planning. This past fall, we were able to open our very first reentry house. We're very excited about this house. It's sober transitional housing for 6 men at a time. They each have their own bedroom. Um, Folks that are in the house are glued into our mentoring program. They come to our meetings. It's a sober environment, so we're really encouraging them along their recovery. And we have on-site case management right in the house. So the folks that are living there, they can get that support. They can get those applications filled out and they can do all of that right there within their home. And we can provide that safe and supportive environment for them to come out and really start working on some of that harder stuff too. Because obviously employment, housing, we have to tick off those boxes. But vast majority of people that are entering the prison system have mental health or substance use issues, if not both, and in many, many, many cases, pretty significant amounts of trauma. And so being able to provide folks with a really safe and non-judgmental environment for them to come out with, to be able to start working on those things is really key, I think, to successful and long-term reentry success.
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think that your program has served a great number of people and served them well. And you have people who have been coming to Inside Out for years. I mean, you have people who are very, very who credit Inside Out to their stability, because I've heard some of those people talk.
Yeah.
I just heard a gentleman the other night talk about it. He thinks he would have gone back to his old life if it hadn't been for Inside Out. So that is really a wonderful thing, and to your credit, to your organization's credit, and to your personal credit also for your caring heart. Would you like to talk a little bit about what you think the prison systems could do that would help people in actual rehabilitation? And you mentioned that you think that reentry starts at the very first day when they go to prison. So what do you think would help that rather than hinder that could be
Yeah.
done while people are in the system?
Yeah. Incarceration is challenging because essentially what it is it's separating, right? It's a separation from everything. And it's taking people away from families and taking people away from things, which in some senses is great because you're like, okay, you're taking them away from a substance that maybe was harmful for them. But I think what we need to think about when it comes to if incarceration still exists is what can we be adding, right? If we're pulling people away, what can we be giving them as a tool? Because if time healed all wounds, like people say, everybody would be walking around healthy and happy, right? But we're not. We're all struggling with stuff. Time isn't the only thing that heals things. We need active supports towards that personal growth and healing. And so I'm a really firm believer that the prison systems need to have more opportunities for education and rehabilitation. And I think especially things around mental health and substance use recovery. Especially being in the field, and I've been in my role for over 6 years now, and I've seen so many guys go in and out with chronic substance use issues, and they do perfectly fine while they're inside. They're away from a substance, they're doing great. They come back out, substance is available to them, and they start using again because the inner stuff hasn't been healed yet. So if we can give people truly good access to mental health care where they can get into, trauma healing, they can get into therapy and start working through on, hey, I
Yes.
learned this coping mechanism as a way to get through my life in the past, but it's not helping me. What's another coping mechanism that can learn? What are some tools, some skills? Is it meditation? Is it mindfulness? Is it, what is it that can help folks adapt to stressors? Because life is stressful and it's always going to be stressful. And I think that folks, when they're inside, they have a lot of time to work on this stuff. And so if we can provide them the access and the opportunities to therapy, to even if it's creative arts programs. I mean, there's tons of literature that shows that,
Mhm.
taking a music group or being in a theater group or taking an arts class where you're drawing, even that can make a significant improvement in someone's lives. Like they just need a lot more. And I think the individuals I've worked with that have come out, I think, in a little bit more stable of placing are individuals that have generally been involved in some type of programming like that. They maybe did a college and prison program and got their associates before they got out, or maybe they'd even complete the associates, but they took a whole semester of classes and they had something to really be proud of. I think if we can give folks those opportunities, it really will make a big difference for their journey moving forward.
I agree. Time does not heal all. It's what you do with the time. That you'll either get better or you'll get bitter. That's an old saying from when I
Mm,
was a therapist. We used to use that a lot in
yeah,
therapy when I worked in patient treatment and substance abuse. You're either going to get bitter or you're going to get better. It's up to you what you want to do. But like you say, people need to be provided the coping skills. If they had a lot of those coping skills, and if we taught people that at a young age, like in the school system, or in families or in church or in groups or wherever. Now there are some states that are doing that in the schools, teaching
mm,
kids mindfulness and meditation. If people knew that, they would not necessarily turn to drugs and alcohol, and they would have those coping skills already in them. That's what's lacking, is we just don't know how to cope. I
mhm,
don't. A lot of people believe that people drink because they want to, or they go back to drinking or using because they want to. I personally believe it's because they don't know how to cope. There are too many choices. There's too much stress. They don't know what to do. Um, and their brain goes back to what worked. So
right.
I could not agree with you more.
Yeah, and I see all the time in reentry, like it's a stressful time. Like they say finding a job or finding housing is one of the top most 5 stressful things that anyone can do in their life. And when someone's returning, they're doing everything. They're trying to reconnect with their family. They're trying to save their money. They're trying to do all these things. And when you're doing all of these things and you're making your PO appointment and all of that, mental health gets deprioritized just out of a survival tactic. This idea of getting on the bus and driving across town to try to get a therapist appointment. And we've seen folks waiting like 6 months to get a therapist. And someone coming first out shouldn't be waiting 6 months. They need that therapy right away to help them with all this other stressful transition. And so mental health gets deprioritized. And, pretty soon after that, the stress levels go up and it just, yeah, it reverts back to what have I done in the past that has made life more manageable for me. And they go right back to so many of the patterns that they had known previously. And I think that if we can really, as a society, invest in making sure people have the resources to feel better, I think it's going to make a really big difference for everybody and everybody in the community. Because I think if we really care about public safety, then people need to feel safe inside themselves as well. That will trigger a ripple effect on the entire community.
I agree. And you mentioned my favorite word, which is families. That is my main concern. And I consider the person who has been incarcerated and whoever their loved ones are as the family, the loved ones that need to be. Sometimes it is reuniting with their biological family. Sometimes it's their marital family, the a relationship family. Sometimes it's friends. Sometimes people come out and they really don't have anybody. If you don't mind, if you would talk a little bit about what you have seen at Inside Out in Johnson County as far as families are concerned and as far as the needs that families have, both while somebody's incarcerated and during, just previous to reentry and then during
Sure.
reentry.
Yeah. I think a lot of I will say a large portion of folks we work with oftentimes don't have any familial support. They're kind of on their own because of maybe things that have happened. Maybe the family wasn't a healthy environment for them, or they damaged relationships because of, behaviors that have separated them from families. When we have seen really supportive families, we have seen folks be a lot more successful, I'll be honest. But I also know there's a lot of challenges there too. We've had spouses or sisters, mothers call us, reach out to us and say, "Hey, I don't know what to do here. I'm overwhelmed. I'm trying to take care of the things in my life and my loved one needs help and I can't help them anymore. They need a higher level of care or support structure. They're struggling and I can't manage it." And I think that that's a challenge that's not talked about enough in our societies. Even when folks do have this supportive family structure, life is just hard as it is sometimes. And so when you have a loved one with chronic mental health or, chronic substance use issues, you're trying your very best, but a lot of times there needs to be some professional help there. There's only so much that families can do to support people. There's major financial restrictions, if um, while someone's incarcerated, it's very expensive for the family. And when someone comes out and they have no money, it's then very expensive for the family to try to support that person while they're getting back on their feet. And that can cause a lot of challenges in the family structure. And that's something that we see often. I've had calls from family members saying, "I don't know what to do. They need money. How do I support them? I don't have any money to give them." And it's like, well, let's see what financial resources are in the community. They can get rental assistance from this organization, or they can go over here and, get this over there. Because it's a lot. And it's not like people are really earning a lot of money when they're inside. So they're, coming out with $150. They're not coming out with like thousands or something to start over this new life. They're oftentimes really having to rely very heavily on the family structure, which is very, very challenging on kind of on everybody. Or, we'll also see the converse side where people they want to prove they want to prove good to their family. And so they don't connect because they wanna wait until everything's, like, absolutely perfect, and it's like, "Well, do you think if you called your sister, she'd listen to what's going on in your life and be an understanding ear?" And I understand that too because you want people to see you in your best form, but social network and support is just so important for us as humans that, we need that positive structure, and I think that's why at Inside Out, we try to do that so much for folks because we know that the outside world can be very challenging. And so you're out, and let's try to provide that supportive community here for you so that even if you don't have that positive family support, you can come here and, you can meet others here and make your own mini family amongst the folks that you meet. At our game night last night, I actually was talking to a gentleman and he was telling yeah they formed a little crew at their work. They're all friends, they all watch out for each other in their recovery and they've got each other's backs. And I think that that's important. That's important work and we all need that in our lives. Those close positive networks that can really keep us motivated, and keep us connected with one another.
Yes, I think that's so true. I agree that there are people who oftentimes are more connected to people that they've been incarcerated with than they are with their family because they sort of had to be while they were
Mhm.
incarcerated.
Yeah.
You have to build a community while you're incarcerated. You don't have to. Most of the people do. There are very few people who do it on their own, who do it as a
Mhm.
loner. And that's just human nature. We just need people. So
Yeah.
I agree with that. I also think that families need each other. Families
Mm.
need other families that they can talk with because there's a lot of shame and a lot of instances that goes with having somebody who's incarcerated. If it's your husband, if it's your son, if it's your sister or brother, whoever it is, whoever it is, there's a lot of shame that can result from misunderstandings. The only thing that families are guilty of is loving somebody who's incarcerated,
Mhm.
but
Right.
they carry a lot of shame. And when someone goes to prison, all their loved ones who stay connected with them are in prison in one form or another. I mean, everybody does time.
Yes.
So I could not agree more. And I believe that we need more toward families and including the person who's incarcerated, not just the family, but including the person who's incarcerated.
Mhm.
Before we close, is there anything that you haven't said that you really want to make sure gets said
I
today
guess,
about prison,
yeah.
about what prison does to people, about how about what prison does to people, and about what we could be doing that would not make it so traumatic?
Yeah. I mean, I always say if you didn't have trauma before prison, you have trauma after prison. Um, just because of the nature and in the environment of what incarceration does. I mean, little things. I don't know how many times I've spoken to someone who's just gotten out of prison and they've said, Michelle, I broke down in Walmart. That's a really common one. I've had that comment, and I'm always like, you are not the only one. This happens to lots and lots of people because they walk in the aisles, the lights, it's bright. There's people everywhere, and they have 1,000 choices. And in prison, you have one choice every day. That's it. And you get to Walmart and you're looking at this aisle of like 30 things. I mean, there's so many little things that I think as a society we can do a little bit better to be welcoming to people. But I think really preparing folks before they leave prison to what it's gonna be like, to even giving them those little pieces of information of like, "Hey, you're probably gonna get overwhelmed at a Walmart," because those guys feel shame, they feel like, "Wow, I'm at Walmart, I was excited to be here, and I'm having a panic attack in the aisle, what's wrong with me?" And it's like, "Dude, there's nothing wrong with you. This is a totally bizarre experience compared to what you just lived for 7 years." I mean, I find Walmart personally overwhelming at times, but, it's just folks aren't really, I think, getting that preparation deeply enough on what it's really gonna feel like. And little things like I see, guys come out with medication refills, right? And they wait until their very last refill and they're like, "Oh, I need to refill it. Let me make a doctor's appointment." And it's like doctors are scheduled months and months and months and months out. And if people could be provided that education before they leave prison to know, hey, like you need to prioritize making your doctor's appointments right away, even though you're getting a 3-month subscription or, prescription, you have to make sure you get that doctor's appointment scheduled. Cause I see that all the time. People go off blood pressure, diabetes medication, really serious medications.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're just out because they just didn't know. It's not like they were trying to be, um, uh, unmotivated. They just were like, "Well, I've got refills. I'm fine. I'll just make an appointment when my refills are up." And then they can't. It's too late at that point, and they're back in this log system. And so I think there's so many little things that we can do to help people prepare before they get out. And even, I always tell people don't just have one plan, have two. Have two plans because life is unpredictable and you just have no clue what's going to happen. So make plan A, make plan B. You might end up using parts of both. You may make up plans because I've had guys come out with wonderful plans, but then very crazy things will happen that are completely out of their control, and then that plan goes out the window and they don't know what to do next. So I think we got to plan for sort of all occasions and making sure that folks know that before they get out. It's more than just thinking, hey, I got to go get a job. it's all the other stuff, and how can we really get people ready for release. I think we'll make a really big difference, hopefully, when folks do get out and sort of hit that ground running.
Yes, I agree. I've worked in both the state and the federal systems, and I would say the federal system does a better job, but neither do a good job of preparing people for reentry. And there is a lot that could be done. There is a lot that could be done, and a lot of barriers could be handled and removed prior to release that would save that lack of coping skills, that would save those panic attacks, that would allow people to function better when they get out. I've seen so many people come out of prison. This is mostly when I worked in the federal system, when I actually had them in group. I've seen so many people come out of prison really motivated, really ready, really wanting to do well. And man, their hopes get dashed just like that because they're not prepared. Like you talked, they don't have medication. Their housing plan fell through. They thought they had a car and they don't have a car. They thought they had a job, and then their probation officer said no. It was all set up, but then the probation officer said no. There are just so many things that could be. They didn't have their social security card. They thought so. Then they try to go get their driver's license, and they can't get their driver's license.
Mhm.
And I mean, there are so many things that could be avoided. So many pitfalls that could be avoided if the prison system handled those things prior to release, or let people like you in your organization, or people like Living Beyond the Bars in the organization that I've been part of, help do some of that. I mean, we would be happy to help people do that. We'd be happy to.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I want thank you very much. I really do appreciate you and the work that you've done and your heart. And so in closing, once again, thank you very much. And I just want to say that this is the Iowa Prison Perspective Station. And there are a number of interviews up from a variety of people who have worked with people in prison, who have been incarcerated themselves, loved ones, and other advocates. So please tune in to get a perspective from a variety of different people and different angles, perspectives of what actually prison is like. You can learn so much from listening to people who've been incarcerated and listening to people who work with people who have been incarcerated and listening to the family members. You get a whole picture if you listen to everybody who's involved in this system. So I would encourage you to do that as the public. That's the purpose of these series. If you want to reach me, I really would love to hear from you. I'm wanting discussion, whether you agree with what we're saying, whether you don't agree with what we're saying, if you think it's ridiculous what we're saying, if you think it's needed, however you feel. I would love to hear from you. And the Gmail address is iowaprisonperspectives@gmail.com, and that's iaprisonperspectives@gmail.com. So once again, thank you very much, Michelle, and I will close this particular interview in this series, and I will see you again next week. Have good days. Takes me a minute.